Alrighty, welcome back everyone to Phasmophobia. Hope you're all having a lovely day. We are going to cover Sunny Meadows in today's hiding guide, the 12th and final part of this playlist. This will also include Sunny Meadows Restricted, and there will be some minor differences with Sunny Meadows Restricted, and we will showcase them when we get there. Full-size Sunny Meadows is the map that you need to play if you want to get your gold trophy, and Sunny Meadows Restricted is a subset of the full-size Sunny Meadows maps, with some minor differences in the hiding spots. Sunny Meadows Restricted, however, does not count towards the gold trophy, so you have to play the full-size variant. If you are entering a hiding spot, ensure that your equipment is turned off and that the ghost does not see you enter the hiding spot. Just like with the other videos in this playlist, there will be two parts, the first of which is an overview of all of the hiding spots, and the second part is the gameplay. They are all time-stamped so you can skip ahead if you like, but without further ado, let's get started. Alright, here we are on Sunny Meadows, and we do have quite a lot of options available, and they're all scattered around. But as always, we will start off with the official hiding spots. Alright, and we will start off on the upper floor here, and you just enter the asylum through here, and the first hiding spot that is available is in this manager's office over here. And how this is set up is there's a shelf right here, and then there's also a tilted shelf kind of like that. And this spot is okay. It is not the best, since sometimes the ghost will path right over here and then get line of sight of you. But overall, if you need a spot in this front part of the asylum, then you should be relatively safe. And then moving towards the chapel and to the left side, you do have some lockers in this infirmary over here. These lockers are pretty good. You just close the door in on yourself and you'll be pretty safe. Just make sure your electronics are off. And then in the mail wing, over here and over here, you do have a couple of gurneys that you can kind of hide behind, but they're not that reliable, since sometimes the ghost will just path into your hiding spot randomly, and that's why I don't really like them. There is a hiding spot in mail room 1 over here as well, and this one's okay. However, if the hiding spot is disabled, it's actually even better, which is kind of weird, but this is Kinetic Games we're talking about. And then going towards the end of the mail wing, you do have a shelf at the end of the hallway there, just kind of positioned like that. You just hide behind it just like so, and you should be pretty safe. Sometimes it will path into your hiding spot over here, and then it will get you, but the odds of that happening are relatively low. And then in the day room over here, you do have a pretty solid shelf that you can hide behind, and this one is quite safe. And then in the male dorm room, you do have a bed over here, as well as a table that you can hide behind right here. The spot here is okay, and a lot of it has to do with the ghost's pathing. And the reason why is because there is a room directly underneath the dorm room and the day room, and that is the morgue. And because of that, you don't have the ghost hanging around in this room for all that long. So if that spot is available, I feel relatively safe there. Next, let's go around the courtyard, and inside of the West Visitors Room, you do have another pretty good shelf available here. This one is pretty good. The only downside with this one is the room is pretty small, and the ghost can take a little bit of a shortcut through the shelf. But this spot is not as egregious as some of the other hiding spots on the other maps, where the ghost can just walk through the hiding spot no problem. This one, it can only go through like half of the shelf, which is not ideal, but still, it's better than some of the other maps. Inside of the classroom over here, you do have another shelf over here, just kind of positioned like that. This one's okay, but if the ghost does go to over here, then it will see you no problem. And then going into the kitchen over here and into the dining room, you do have a pretty good shelf over here that blocks a lot of line of sight. The ghost will not hang around in the dining room that often. It will mostly just be going around in the kitchen over here and this room and the boiler room and so on. And speaking of the boiler room, there are some barrels in here that are available, just kind of positioned like this. These barrels are a lot better than the ones that you find on Camp Woodwind, because the odds of the ghost going to the back of this room are pretty low compared to Camp Woodwind, where effectively the ghost will just hang around your barrels and then it will just get you. But here you don't really have that problem. And also the barrels are positioned in a way where you can just squish yourself inside of the barrels and the ghost will have to go into this area to see you. So if the barrels are there, then I'd feel relatively comfortable hiding there. And then going to the east side of the courtyard, you do have another shelf that's available in the servant's room, and this spot is pretty good. You just hide in the shelf like that. The odds of the ghost going into your hiding spot are quite low. So I'd feel pretty safe in this spot here. And then lastly, in the courtyard area, you do have a shelf available right here. And there are a little bit of boxes right there. You just hide behind here and you'll be relatively safe. However, I find that the boxes do absolutely nothing to prevent the ghost from pathing there. Even if the boxes were not there to begin with, I still feel pretty safe there regardless, because the shelf is doing all of the work there for hiding. Now we'll go into the female wing, and going into female room number 4 over here, patient 7's room, you do have a bed that's kind of positioned like this. And there's also another like table over here with a suitcase on top of it that blocks quite a lot more line of sight. And this spot is quite good because of that suitcase. So you just hide right about there. The ghost will have to get line of sight of you over here to see you. Whereas if the suitcase wasn't there, then you have basically half the room for the ghost to get line of sight of you. So this spot is pretty good. And then going towards the end of the hallway there, you do have a shelf with a gurney over here, and you just hide right in that corner there, and that spot is actually pretty decent. And a lot of this has to do with pathing. And because there is a big hallway underneath the female wing, then the ghost will often just path down here and up the stairs again. It won't even consider this spot over here at all. So overall, I would feel pretty safe in that hiding spot. Now, that being said, if you do have the female wing on Sunny Meadows Restricted, then this spot might not be as good because you don't have that hallway underneath. And so you might have more chances of the ghost going into your hiding spot there. And then going to the day room over here, you do have another shelf kind of positioned like this. You just hide in here like that. And for the ghost to see you in your hiding spot, it would have to be pretty much right on top of you. And so this spot is pretty reliable, but some less reliable spots are these spots here. And there is a reason for this. And that is because there is no room directly underneath these two rooms, unlike the male wing over here on the left side. But we'll start off with this gurney over here. Now, because there are no rooms directly underneath these two rooms over here, the ghost will like to path in between these two rooms quite a lot. And that could be problematic with this spot here, because sometimes the ghost will decide to set a waypoint over here, and then it will see you and it will get you. But this spot over here by the bed is actually even worse. And so this spot is built similarly to the male wing, where there is a bed and a table, and you just hide behind the table. But because there are no rooms directly underneath this room, the ghost will just go back and forth a lot in this room for pretty much the majority of the hunt, and it will have a very high chance of setting a waypoint into your hiding spot and then getting you in your hiding spot. So I wouldn't really hide there even if that hiding spot is available, but rather I would just shimmy along this bed over here, and that can be a good spot for getting a visual of the ghost and getting some more information from the ghost and keeping yourself relatively safe. But we'll get more into detail on that later. Next, let's go downstairs into the basement, and over here you do have another shelf that's available. This spot is pretty good. You just hide right behind the shelf there, and for the ghost to get you, you'd either have to set a waypoint over here, or you have to have like a unaged Thay at 150 speed, or a revenant that got line of sight of you, and then it just goes into your spot there. But overall, this spot is quite good. In the matron's office, you do have another shelf that you can hide behind. You just crouch behind the shelf and the filing cabinets, and you'll be pretty safe there. Make sure you're crouching, because if you're standing, there is a chance that the ghost can see you when it paths over here, gets line of sight of you, and then it will just path over here and then get you. And overall, you don't want that to happen. Going into the basement storage over here on the left side, and you do have some dividers kind of set up like this. And you just hide inside of that corner there, just kind of like that. And for the ghost to get in there, it'd have to like set a waypoint into your hiding spot, or it'd have to like see you go into your hiding spot. So overall, pretty good spot. But a not so good hiding spot is hospital room number 2 over here. And I've basically tried as many combinations with this hiding spot as you could, and I found that hiding behind the middle of the bed there is your best option, because often what happens is you try to hide right in this little corner here behind the bed itself, but the ghost can see you like right about here, and then it will just walk into your hiding spot and then you're dead. Whereas here, at the very least, you can tell that the ghost is coming into your spot. And if you need to run, you do have a little bit more flexibility, but it's not that great either. And so even if this hiding spot is available, I will not hide there at all. Next, we will go into the operating room over here, and you do have a bit of a divider right there. You just hide in there, and the ghost should not be able to get you, but sometimes the ghost will set a waypoint right there, and then it would like to check the other side of this divider over here. And so it'll path over here, and then it'll see that the player is hiding right there, and then you're done. So overall, not the best spot. And then we will go into the morgue over here, which you do have a locker right here, and that is your best spot. And the other option for hiding in the morgue is right over here, behind a cart with garbage bags and a lot of flies. Do yourself a favor and don't hide there, because it is a very loud hiding spot, and also, on top of that, that hiding spot isn't even good anymore, because the cart itself has lost its big collider, and the only collider that is blocking line of sight is the garbage bags, and so if the ghost goes over here, then it will see you. Whereas before, it'd have to go over here or right into your hiding spot to see you. And so this spot is not very good anymore. And even if it was still pretty good, I still wouldn't even hide there because of how loud that hiding spot is. And now we will go into the east wing downstairs, and you do have more dividers over here just before the restricted wing entrance. And all you do is just hide behind the divider like this, or even like this, and you should be relatively safe. Sometimes the ghost will path into that hiding spot, however. It is not 100% safe, but it is reasonably safe. And then the last official hiding spot in the restricted wing, and the only one, is actually these curtains over here. And this spot is quite good. It is a pretty small hiding spot. The odds of the ghost going in there is very low. And on top of that, when you're playing on full-size Sunny Meadows, the ghost will be pathing up and down the stairs. And so that spot that is available is quite good. All right, and now on to the unofficial hiding spots. And you do have quite a few options available, but they all vary in terms of how they perform. And let's get started with the foyer over here. There is a pretty big advantage with this foyer here, and that's only if you're playing on the full-size Sunny Meadows map. And that is, this room here cannot be chosen as a ghost room. And that is a big deal, because that means you can walk into the map over here, and you should be relatively safe. The only dangerous rooms would be these two over here, but we'll get to those later. But essentially, what you would do is you just hide behind this wall over here, either on this side or this side, and the ghost will not be able to see you through the wall. And the only way that you'll be in a bit of danger is if the ghost is a Dio, or if the ghost is a Wraith or a Phantom or a Banshee and it's stalking you. So overall, this is a good entry point. There is also another spot behind this plant over here, and this one's not the best because all it takes is the ghost to go this way, gets line of sight of you, and then it gets you. But if you do want to get a little bit of a visual of the ghost and it does go this way, then that option is available. Next, we will go into the waiting room over here, and you do have a spot available behind this chair over here. And this one is only good if the ghost doesn't go over here or goes all the way over here. But overall, this one can be used in a pinch if you need it. Over here in the manager's office, you do have a table that you can kind of hide behind. It is not the best, since all it takes is the ghost to go into this half of the room to see you. And this can also be used as a looping spot. And you can sometimes loop over here, but because of this chair over here and the player model is getting bigger, it is pretty difficult to go through that chair, and oftentimes you just get stuck, and then you'd have to use your smudge prematurely, or you would have to go around the chairs and get more line of sight of the ghost. So if you are looping here, just be careful. Next, we'll go to the chapel, and you do have a couple of options available. You can hide behind this piano over here, but there is a flaw with the piano where the ghost can just walk right through the piano itself. And so it is not the best hiding spot, but it is a pretty decent one that is available. And the piano can be pretty good if you have a ghost room that is over here, or even in the courtyard here. There is also another hiding spot behind the crucifix over here. And all you do is just position your character to where it is blocking the door over here and most of the back of this chapel over here. And you're really only in danger if the ghost goes pretty close to your spot over here. And then over here, you do have a looping spot that is available. Just keep in mind that the ghost will always get line of sight of you over here. So I'd really only loop there for a very short amount of time, or if you're dealing with a DO or something. And then next we will go to the left side, and in the infirmary over here, you can open one of the doors and close the door in on yourself. And there is an asterisk with this spot specifically, and also another one. We'll get to that. But basically, when this spot is blocked, it can either be blocked with boxes or the doors itself will not be able to be opened anymore. And because of that, you will not be able to close the doors in on yourself, and you will have to look elsewhere. But if the lockers are full of boxes, then you can close the door in on yourself. Next, let's go to the mail wing over here, and inside of mailroom 1, you do have a bed that is positioned like this. You just hide at the end of it in that corner there, and congratulations, the ghost will not be able to kill you. Even if you have your electronics on, even if it sees you go into that spot, you will not die there. And then going towards the middle of the mail wing here, I want to let you guys know about this gurney over here. Do not loop there, because what happens is the ghost doesn't know that this exists. And essentially, what happens is you could be over here, the ghost comes out of this room over here, and it will just walk right through the gurney, and then it will just end you immediately. So if you are trying to loop the ghost here, just don't. Next, we'll go to the very end of the mail wing, and inside of the day room, you do have 3 options available. There is a table right here with some items on it that you can kind of hide behind. And so if the ghost does come into the day room over here, you can move with the ghost. So if the ghost is going towards the TV over here, then you can move your character like this. And if the ghost is going over here, then you can kind of move the player kind of like that. And it's all dependent on where the ghost goes. You can also hide behind the TV over here, right over here, and it performs very similarly, if not maybe a little better and more reliably. And basically, the TV is positioned kind of like this. You can hide over here, and it will block line of sight over here. But if the ghost goes over here, then you will have to move over here. So overall, it is a pretty decent hiding spot. You also have another piano over here that you can kind of hide behind. And for the ghost to see you, it would have to go into this half of the room here. And then in the dorm room over here, you do have this bed over here, just kind of positioned like this. You just hide right here and you'll be pretty safe. Now, this bed has something interesting, and we'll show you that in the gameplay. And you might be wondering, that's transparent. The ghost can see you if it goes over here. But actually, that's just one big collider. And for the ghost to see you, it'd have to go all the way over here to see you. But that's also dependent on where the ghost paths, because sometimes the ghost will hang out in this room. And even though there is a room directly underneath this one, then it can still hang around in here, but it is not horrible. Next, we'll go around the courtyard, and let's start off with a classroom over here. There is a chair that is kind of angled like this, and you just hide behind it like so. And the ghost will not be able to see you when it comes into the room over here, and if it goes pretty deep. But if the ghost does go over here, then you'll be in a bit of danger. There is also a desk over here that you can hide behind, just kind of like this. And ideally, you want to hide behind the globe. But if the ghost does go pretty deep into the room, then you're in a lot of danger, because it is a long way to get out of the room, and also you need an incense to get out if the ghost paths that far. Into the West Foul Linen, you do have a cart that you can kind of hide behind. You just hide behind it right over here, and it will block line of sight, but it will not prevent the ghost from walking through it. And that is a pretty big theme in this map. The ghost likes to walk through a bunch of different objects, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Then we will go into the dairy store over here, and there are some containers that you can kind of hide behind right here. There is a pretty decent collider available. However, there is another flaw with this spot, and that is the ghost can just walk through these like they weren't even there. Next, let's go to the kitchen over here. There is a table that is on its side over here, and you just lean against it kind of like this. And this is a safe spot, and that is because if you have your electronics on and the ghost is nearby, then what happens is the ghost will try to get you on this side over here. And even if it does see you over here, it will still try to do the same thing over here. So if you have a kitchen ghost and you're trying to get a gold trophy or something, then that is an option that is available if you want. But also kitchen ghosts are not good to deal with in general. You also do have some looping spots available here, but they are not the best since they are kind of awkward to loop around. And also there are quite a few spots where the ghost just gets line of sight of you. And so I wouldn't really recommend looping in either of these spots here. But if you do choose to loop there, then it is available for you. Going into the wash house, and there is a shelf over here that is angled, and there's also another shelf over here. You just line your character up right there, and the ghost will not be able to see you unless it goes into this half of the wash house. And overall, it is an okay spot if you choose to hide there, but just make sure you have incense on you. Going into the laundry room over here, and you do have 3 spots available. You do have one over in this little shelf over here. You do have another one behind this little cart over here. You also have another one beside the washing machine over there. There is a pretty big problem with this room specifically, and that is the ghost can just walk pretty much anywhere in that room, including inside of the washing machines and inside of the carts. And overall, this ghost thinks this is just one large room with just a couple of shelves in it. But this is not always a good thing, because what happens is you are expecting the ghost to, let's say, set a waypoint over here, and it sees you, goes through there. But what actually sometimes happens is the ghost can set a waypoint right here, and then set a waypoint in your hiding spot. But instead of going all the way around, what happens is the ghost will just go directly to that spot. And because you're thinking the ghost is going to come in from this side, you have absolutely no idea that the ghost is coming in from your right. So therefore, this room is not well designed, and I have no idea why the washing machines have no collision. The same thing can be said about the East Foul Linen. There are some carts that you can kind of hide behind, and they do kind of block line of sight, but again, the ghost can just walk right through the carts. And because of that, these spots are not as good. And then going into the servant's room, you do have a pretty good safe spot over here, and you can get a good visual of the ghost as well. There is a bed right here. There is a table, and all you do is squish yourself inside of here. It might take a little bit of effort to do, but once you're inside, you are perfectly safe from the ghost. And then going into the courtyard over here, you do have a couple of picnic tables that you can kind of loop around. These work the exact same as the ones in Camp Woodwind and Maple Lodge. So you can kind of hide behind here, and it will block line of sight. But if you are looping the ghost, then it will see you over top of these little sides over here. Inside of the East Visitors Room, you do have a couch that is kind of against this wall over here, and you can hide behind it over here, but there is a bit of a problem with this spot as well. And there is another couch just kind of flipped over like this, and sometimes the ghost will just climb over this. And I don't think that used to be the case, because normally you would expect the ghost to just go through here in order to see you, but sometimes what happens is the ghost will just go on top of the couch to see you, and then it'll just go around and then get you. And so now you have 2 spots where the ghost can just see you outright instead of just the one. And so this spot has taken a bit of a nerf recently. This spot over here also used to be a safe spot. And so instead of the players going on top of the couch here, now you have the ghost going on top of the couches, and then it can just get you no problem in this room. So I wouldn't really recommend this room anymore. And then inside of the utility room, you do have a shelf that you can hide behind, just like this. And this performs about the exact same as the official hiding spot. Going into the female wing, you do have a shelf over here that you can hide in, and you can just hide right in there. Now, just keep in mind, if the ghost room is in female room 2, don't hide there. Or if the ghost is constantly pathing inside of this room, then also don't hide there. But it is there if the ghost is mainly pathing up and down the stairs over here and going into the restricted wing. And so it can be a useful line of sight blocker if you need it. And then female room number 3 over here, you do have a bed that you can hide behind, and you just position your character right about here. And this part of the frame will block a bit of the door, as well as this part of the room over here. Now, if the ghost does go over here, then you can move your character a little bit, but otherwise this spot can be pretty good. Going into female room number 4, or patient 7's room, and you do have this little table over here with a suitcase on top of it, and the suitcase is actually solid. So you can place a motion sensor on it, and it is one big collider that you can hide behind, and you can line up this bed over here with the suitcase, and it will block line of sight over here. Just keep in mind, if the ghost does go over onto this side or over here, then you might have to move your character accordingly, or you might have to cleanse the ghost. And then all the way at the end of the hallway here, you do have a couple of spots. They're not that great, except for this one. We'll get to that in a sec. But right here and right here and here, you do have some small little chairs that you can hide behind, and you can get a little bit of a visual of the ghost, but just like with the other objects on this map, the ghost can just walk right through them. You can also loop around this table here, but you will be gaining line of sight the entire time. There's also a little couch over here that is just flipped over. You can hide behind here, but because there are no rooms directly underneath this room, then it is a pretty dangerous place to hide, because the ghost will like to path back and forth all over the place in this room over here. However, this spot over here is a pretty good shimmy spot, and what you would do is you just go left and right here, and you would be pretty safe, but there is a bit of a way to do it, because sometimes you will get stuck doing so. As long as you position your character correctly, you can go left and right, no problem. But if you do get stuck, then you can always crouch to go to the other side. Now we will go downstairs, down the central staircase, and you do have a little shelf that you can hide behind right here, and you will be relatively safe in that hiding spot. Sometimes the ghost will path over here, and then it will see you, and in that case, I would just cleanse the ghost. But otherwise, that can be a pretty useful hiding spot. And then going into the hallway over here, you do have a little chair that you can kind of hide behind, and this spot can be good to get a visual of the ghost. However, if the ghost is on the left side of the map, I would not recommend using it. I'd only use this spot over here if the ghost is mainly pathing up and down the stairs over here, and then going into the restricted wing over there. Inside of the matron's office, there is a shimmy spot right here. You just go left and right there. Or if you just want to use it as a normal looping spot, you can, but this chair over here is in the way, so you might be giving up line of sight. Or if you just want to hide in this room, then you can do so just behind that desk over there. Going to the left side, you do have the basement storage, and you can hide behind the wheelchair there, and it can be pretty useful. And also, you have a little bit of a divider right here that you can kind of position your character behind, and it will block coverage over here, but it is also not the safest. And also with the wheelchair here, the ghost can just walk through it, no problem. And then inside of hospital room number 1, you do have a bed that you can hide behind right there. And this spot is okay. I think it used to be a bit better, but sometimes the ghost will just see you through the bed and then it'll get you, or sometimes it'll set a waypoint here and then get you there. Hospital room number 3 used to be much better, because right here, you used to be able to go pretty deep into the corner there, but the farthest that you can go into this spot nowadays is right about here, and that is not ideal, because now the ghost can go like right here, and then it'll just see you in that spot. I would still feel okay hiding there, but I'd rather hide elsewhere. And then hospital room number 4 has the gurney, and you can go left and right here, and this spot is pretty solid. But if you decide that you want to hide after looping the ghost here, then make sure you cleanse the ghost or just don't shimmy in that spot to begin with. Because what will happen is if you decide to hide right here, the ghost remembers your location over here. It will try to reach you on the other side of this corner here, and then it will get you. So be careful. And then into hospital room number 5, you do have a couple of beds that you can hide behind, and they are pretty decent. This one right here is the one that you will see most often, and this one is relatively okay. But if the ghost goes far enough into the room, then it will see you. But this one over here is interesting, and I think because of 0.11, you are now able to use this bed over here. But this bed does have a little bit of a danger to it. If you go too far into this bed over here, then you will get stuck. And if you do get stuck, then you will have to leave the game. But if you are kind of in the middle here, the ghost can go pretty much all the way there, and the odds of the ghost seeing you are still pretty low. So this spot can be pretty useful. And then over here, you do have a little bed that you can kind of hide behind, and this spot is quite good. You can get a very good visual of the ghost, but sometimes it can reach through this little area over here and then get you. But overall, I still feel pretty safe in that spot. And it is one of my favorite spots on this map. Going into the morgue, you do have a looping spot over here, as well as this little sink over here that you can loop around. And if you want to hide in the morgue, you can kind of do so over here. But just keep in mind, if the ghost does go far enough into the morgue, then it will get line of sight of you. We have another one of these lockers in the morgue over here, and same thing, you just open the door like this and close it in on yourself. But if the doors are not able to be opened, then you're not able to do that anymore. As long as there are boxes inside of that locker, then you can close the doors in on yourself. Going into the restricted wing, and you do have a wheelchair that is kind of in this corner over here. This spot can be pretty decent. Just keep in mind that the ghost can just walk right through the wheelchair sometimes, and then it'll just get you unexpectedly. You also have to move your player accordingly with the ghost. So if the ghost is over here, then you want to be over here. But if the ghost is going this way, then you want to move your character over here a little bit. And I will show you more of that in game. And then going inside of the restricted wing, you do have a bit of line of sight blockers available. You have a lot of these dividers here that block line of sight, but there are not a lot of hiding spots available in the restricted wing. And really the first one that is available is in restricted room number 4 over here, behind this little cart over here. Even then, it is not that great because all it takes is the ghost to go into this half of the room to see you. But a really good hiding spot in restricted wing is inside of the examination room over here. And it is behind this little couch over here. And because of that hiding spot, the ghost will have to get really close to see you. And the odds of that happening are quite low. And then you also have another divider over here that you can kind of loop around. And this one is a little tricky to loop around because you're not really getting a visual of the ghost. And also, there are a couple of parts of it where it is just kind of awkward to loop on, like the legs of the divider. So you do have to be careful when looping there. And then you also have another divider over here that you can kind of hide behind. And this one is pretty good. But if the ghost goes over here, then it will get line of sight of you. And then lastly, you do have these stairs over here, which can be a safe spot as long as you have your electronics on. And if the ghost gets line of sight of you, then you will have to cleanse the ghost because it will get you. But if you do have your electronics on, the ghost will be stuck on top of the stairs there and it will not be able to get you. But otherwise, this spot can just be a basic line of sight blocker, blocking line of sight of the door here, and then the ghost will just go up and down the stairs. But if the ghost doesn't know where you are and it goes into this area of the staircase, then it will just get line of sight of you and then it will get you. So if you do hide underneath these stairs here, then either make sure you have incense on you or make sure your electronics are on. And then with Sunny Meadows Restricted, let's take a look at all of the wings here. Now, if you are playing on Sunny Meadows Restricted, some of these spots may drop a tier or two, and that is because you don't really have a floor above or below. And because of that, that changes the pathing quite a lot. And so you might have the ghost just going back and forth between these rooms over here. And in that case, you will be in a little more danger. And the same can be said about the other wings as well. The hospital wing, same thing. The spots might drop a tier or two. And then with the courtyard, you do have a couple of extra hiding spots available. You do have a little shelf over here that you can kind of hide behind, just right there. And that's only for Sunny Meadows Restricted with the courtyard variant. And that's mainly because the ghost tends to path back and forth like this. And really the only way the ghost will see you in this spot is if it sets a waypoint over here, or if you're dealing with a 150% speed Thay and it's going down the hallway here, slamming into the wall and getting a line of sight of you. But overall, that spot can be good in Sunny Meadows Restricted, and specifically the courtyard variant. And then you also have another spot over here where there is a shelf and a gurney over here. And this spot used to be a lot better, but now this spot I don't really recommend anymore. And that's because you actually used to be able to hide right there, and you can block line of sight even if the ghost goes back and forth here. However, because the player models got bigger, you actually get stuck in this spot, and you will have to leave the game in that case. So if you are hiding here, then I would just hide right about there. But otherwise, Sunny Meadows Restricted is basically the same as full-size Sunny Meadows when it comes to hiding spots. And Male Wing, same thing. The spots may drop a tier or two, and also Female Wing. However, these red spots over here, they will probably just perform the same regardless because there isn't a room underneath to begin with. And lastly, here is a quick look at all of the Sunny Meadows Restricted variants. Overall, some of these spots will perform similarly, but some of them may drop a tier or two. And that is because the ghost is unable to path up and down the stairs like it used to. And because of that, that changes the pathing quite a lot. And so you might have the ghost being stuck in one of your respective wings, and you might be in a little bit more danger. If you're playing on Sunny Meadows Restricted and your ghost is in one of the wings, then the quality of each hiding spot in the respective wings might drop a tier or two. And there is the female wing as well. And now we will get into the hiding spots in game, and we will see how they all perform. All right, so here we are on Sunny Meadows, and the first official hiding spot that we have available is actually in this manager's office over here. So all you do is you just hide behind this little shelf over here, and the ghost will not be able to see you unless it gets into this area over here. And at that point, it will get line of sight of you. But the odds of that happening are relatively low. So I wouldn't really worry about it too much unless the ghost is hanging around in this room quite a lot. Next, we will go to the infirmary, which is on the left side of the chapel. And there are some lockers that you can hide in. And all you do is close the door in on yourself, make sure your electronics are off, and the ghost will not be able to get you. Into the male wing, and we do have a hiding spot right off the bat. And it is behind this little gurney over here beside the shelf. Now, there is a bit of a flaw with the spot, and it is with this shelf over here. What you would normally do is you try to kind of hide like this, and the ghost won't be able to get you unless it decides to path in here, which sometimes it does, and it is relatively often that it will do it. So I wouldn't really hide here to begin with, but making this spot even worse is if you're trying to jam yourself into this corner, you can kind of climb up this shelf here. And this can also be used as a safe spot. So all you do is climb up this shelf. It is a little tricky to do. It does take a bit of practice to do, but you would just go up kind of like this, and you're pretty much safe from the ghost, and you would just do a little gurney loop kind of like this. Now, this spot only works if this hiding spot is active. So if this gurney is gone, then you won't be able to use this to your advantage. But you can also peek the ghost over top of it, and you can get a good visual of it, as long as the ghost is not behind any objects, which there are quite a few in this map. The next official hiding spot is in here, and this one is weird, because all you do is just hide behind here, just like this, and the ghost will not be able to see you unless it gets over here. But we will come back to this spot later in the unofficial hiding spot section, because there's something interesting with this bed. The next official hiding spot is behind this gurney over here, and this one's very similar to the one at the male wing entrance. It is not the best. Sometimes the ghost will path in here from time to time, and it will see you for no reason. So this one I wouldn't really use even if it is available. I'd rather just hide elsewhere. And then over here, there are some better hiding spots available. There's one behind this little shelf over here, just in this corner. The odds of the ghost coming in here are pretty low, but it has happened to me sometimes. So if you do hide here, be careful. There is another one in this room over here, and it is just behind this table over here. And this spot here is relatively okay. Sometimes the ghost will hang in this room for a little bit, but oftentimes it will leave this room and go downstairs. Next, we will go into this room over here, the day room, and you do have one spot available, and it is behind this shelf over here. This spot is solid. I feel pretty confident hiding here, and the odds of the ghost going in here are pretty slim. So if this spot is available, I'd feel pretty comfortable hiding here. Next, we will go around the courtyard, and in this room over here on the left, we do have a shelf that you can hide behind right here. Now, this spot is pretty good. Sometimes the ghost will cut into this shelf a little bit to get over here, but it is not often that it happens. And also, this spot is not as offensive as some of the other hiding spots covered in this playlist, where sometimes the ghost will just walk through the hiding spot and get you. But overall, I feel pretty safe in here. Next one is in the classroom over here, and you do have another shelf hiding spot. This one is not as good as the one in that room over there, and that's because sometimes the ghost will set a waypoint over here, and then it will get line of sight of you. But even still, this room is still pretty big, and I feel relatively okay over here. Next, we will go inside of the kitchen, and there are a couple of hiding spots inside of this room over here. And the first of which is in this little dining room over here, and you do have another shelf hiding spot to hide behind. Now, this one is, again, pretty strong. The odds of the ghost going into this spot are pretty low, and also this room is pretty big to begin with. So if this hiding spot is available, I feel pretty okay there. The next one is in the boiler room, and is just behind these little barrels over here. Now, the difference between these barrels and the barrels on Camp Woodwind is quite big. And that's because you just squeeze into these barrels over here. For the ghost to see you, it'd have to make a waypoint all the way over here. And this room is pretty big to begin with. So if these barrels are available, I feel much safer here than the barrels on Camp Woodwind. And also, given that this map is quite big, the odds of the ghost going into this room to begin with are relatively low, unless it is chasing you and you might be in a little bit of trouble. And the next room that has hiding is in here, and it is just behind this little shelf over here. This spot is quite good, and for the ghost to get to you, it would have to go right into your hiding spot right over here, and then it will see you. But the odds of that happening are pretty low. So if you need to hide in this room, you can do so safely. You're going to break the lights. But that's not the only thing that this room has going for, and we'll come back to that later in the unofficial section. There is another spot available inside of this room over here, just beside the entrance to the female wing, and it is just beside this shelf over here, beside these boxes, and this spot is pretty good. However, these boxes don't really do anything. The ghost can just walk through it like nothing, but even though these boxes are treated as if they were not here, I still feel pretty safe here. When we come back into the unofficial section, it basically performs the same as the official hiding spot. All right, moving on to the female wing, and we do have some options available. The first of which is in female room number 4, or patient 7's room, whichever you prefer. And the spot is just behind this bed over here. And this spot is a lot better than you think, because the benefit with this spot is you just hide behind here, and the ghost won't be able to see you unless it gets to right about here. And you might be thinking, oh, this suitcase I can just pick up, just like any other object. No. This is, in fact, solid. And this is a big deal, because instead of having the ghost walking over here and seeing you, the ghost has to go over here to see you. And that makes this spot a lot better. And we will come back to this room later. And the next hiding spot is behind this gurney over here. This spot is pretty good in this swing. And the odds of the ghost coming in here are relatively low. And that's because what happens is the ghost likes to path up and down these stairs from time to time. And that's because of how the pathing works. And so using this room as an example, if the ghost spawns in here, what will often happen is the ghost will set a waypoint directly below it, and it will go to one of the rooms in the restricted wing. So it will go up and down the stairs, just kind of like this, and it won't even consider you being in this spot over here. So overall, I feel pretty safe behind this gurney. The next hiding spot we will cover is this one, and this one I don't feel as safe. And the reason why is because of pathing again. And there is a pretty big difference between the rooms on this side of the female wing versus the rooms on the other side of male wing. And that's because, at least with male wing, there is a room directly underneath the dorm room and the day room, whereas here, there's nothing. And what ends up happening is the ghost will ping pong between these rooms from time to time, and it will get stuck here quite often. And that's a problem because oftentimes the ghost will set a waypoint in here, and then it will see you hiding in here. But if there was a room directly underneath the day room and the dorm room, then you will be pretty safe in there. And the same can be said for this table over here. This table, do not hide here. It's not very good. And that's for the same reason. The ghost will be going back and forth everywhere in this room, and because this is either a medium map on Sunny Meadows Restricted or a large map on full-size Sunny Meadows, the ghost will not really leave this room, and then it will eventually set a waypoint here and get you. So if you need to hide in this room, we will come back into the unofficial section, but you would have to use this bed to your advantage. Into the day room, you do have a pretty good spot in here. Now, even though the ghost has a very high chance of being in this room for the entire hunt, this spot is quite good, and it blocks quite a lot of coverage. And so for the ghost to get you, it'd pretty much have to go into your hiding spot. And now we will go downstairs. We are in the center part of the map, and the next official hiding spot is beside this little shelf over here. And this spot is okay. However, sometimes if you do get a fast ghost, then it will kind of overshoot in here sometimes. And that's really only because the ghost is chasing you. So overall, I feel pretty safe in here. And as long as the ghost isn't chasing me, then this spot is pretty good. This spot in here in the matron's office, you just hide behind this little shelf and you'll be pretty safe. Now, as long as you're crouching in this spot, then you'll be pretty safe. But if you're standing here, then what will happen is the ghost will just see you over top of this shelf over here. And that is not ideal. So you want to crouch. And as long as you're crouching, the odds of the ghost going into this spot here are pretty minimal. And then we will go into basement storage over here, and we do have another spot available. It is just behind these little curtains over here, and this spot is pretty good. And the likelihood of the ghost coming in here is pretty low, and so I'd feel pretty safe in this hiding spot here. And then next we will go into the hospital wing, and there's a total of 4 official hiding spots. The first of which is in this room over here. It is just behind this little bed over here, and this spot I would not really recommend. And the reason why is because if you're hiding here, the ghost will often just path towards the back of the bed, and then it will see you and get you. So if you need to hide here, I'd recommend hiding here because of this collider here. And at the very least, you would see the ghost coming into your spot, and you can cleanse the ghost if necessary. Whereas over here, if you do go inside, there is no collider behind these little bars here. And so the ghost does have a high likelihood of seeing you over here. The next room is over here in the operating room, and it is just behind these little curtains over here. Now this spot is not as good because what often happens is if the ghost sets a waypoint over here, then what ends up happening is the ghost will just go to the other side here. Oh, I see a player. I'm going to get you. Boop. And you're gone. So this spot is not exactly the safest. So I wouldn't really hide here even if it is available. And then the last two hiding spots are in the morgue, and one of which is inside of these lockers over here. You just close the door in on yourself and you'll be pretty safe. Just make sure your electronics are off and all is good. And the next official hiding spot is beside this little cart over here. Now, as you can hear, this spot is not pleasant. And to make things even worse, this spot used to be much better. There used to be a pretty big collider right in this cart over here, and it's just one big block. However, they decided to remove that collider. And so if the ghost goes over here, it will see you pretty easily. Whereas before, the ghost would have to go either right here or right into your hiding spot to see you. So they made this hiding spot even worse. If that is available, don't hide there. And you're much better off just looping around this little table over here. And this spot is also better for preserving your in real life sanity, as well as you're getting a visual of the ghost. So this table over here is already better than whatever this spot is. Next, we will go to the east side of the basement, and there is another hiding spot available just before the entrance to the restricted wing. You just kind of hide like this, and you'll be mostly safe. Sometimes the ghost will path in here, but the odds of that happening are pretty low. And then into the restricted wing, we do have one official hiding spot available, and it is behind these little dividers over here. And all you do is just hide right here. And it is very unlikely that the ghost will get you in this hiding spot. And so if this is available, I feel pretty safe here. And now we will see how all of the unofficial hiding spots perform. Alright, here we are on Sunny Meadows with all of the hiding spots disabled. And where do we hide now? Now, as soon as you walk in, you can hide behind either of these dividing walls, and the ghost will not be able to see you unless it gets into this area over here. And because this is full-size Sunny Meadows, this room specifically cannot be chosen as a ghost room. And that is pretty big for the Apocalypse challenge. Because what often happens is, if you have a ghost in either of these rooms over here or elsewhere, the odds of the ghost going over here are relatively low, but it is not impossible. Most oftentimes the ghost will just go down the stairs over here and then just set random waypoints somewhere. First, let's go into the manager's office over here, and you do have some options available. You can hide behind the desk over here, and you can also loop around it. Just be careful when looping here, because since the player models got bigger in the 0.11 update, you're not able to squeeze through here as efficiently. You can still do it, but it takes a lot more work. Most oftentimes, you just have to go around these chairs, and that's not ideal for looping, because you're getting line of sight of the ghost, and the ghost can also walk through these chairs. So I wouldn't really loop here for the entire hunt. Next, we will go into this room over here, the waiting room, and you do have a spot available in here. And it is actually behind this little chair over here. And for the ghost to see you, it would either have to go over here or all the way over here in this room. And this spot can be useful if you are in a pinch. And so this room is not completely useless. Another thing I'd like to add with this room specifically is oftentimes the ghost will spawn inside of these chairs here and it will be stuck there. And using that to your advantage, you can get a good visual of the ghost. Next, we will go into the chapel over here, and there are a couple of options available. First of which is behind this big crucifix over here. This does block quite a bit of line of sight here, and for the ghost to get you, it'd have to be pretty close to you, and it would have to go behind here. But otherwise, the level of danger behind here is pretty low. And as long as you're not playing with all cursed objects and you don't like the circle, then this spot is pretty viable. Next spot is behind this piano over here, and all you do is just hide beside it. And the ghost will have to go all the way over here into this area to see you. But there is a problem with this piano, and the problem is the ghost can just walk right through the piano. And so it is not the safest, but it is pretty useful in the Apocalypse Challenge. Next, we will go into the infirmary over here, and there are these lockers over here that you can hide in. However, there is an asterisk with this hiding spot. And that is because sometimes the doors do not open when it's blocked. When that is the case, you can't use that hiding spot. But if you can open the doors, you can squish yourself in like this, and you will block line of sight. Now, given that this room is pretty small, and if the ghost decides to go back and forth in this room quite a lot, then you'll be in a bit of danger. So not the best hiding spot in here, but it is there if you're in a pinch. Next, we will go into the mail wing, and here we are in mailroom 1 again. And you might be wondering, why are we still here if the official hiding spot is gone in this room? Well, funny thing is, the unofficial spot is actually a lot better than the official hiding spot. And because of how this bed is set up, you are actually in a safe spot. So even if you have your equipment on, or if the ghost has seen you enter this spot, you're in absolutely no danger. The ghost will not be able to get you in here. Next, I want to go down the mail wing and be careful with this gurney over here specifically. And you might think, oh, this is a good looping spot. You just loop around like this and all will be good. Except there is a pretty big flaw with this. And I don't know why Kinetic has decided to do this, but whenever you're looping around here or you're just passing by, the ghost can just walk through this gurney like it wasn't even there. So if you were trying to loop here, don't do it because you will die. Next spot is over here in the day room over here, and you do have quite a few options available. You can hide behind this little table over here, and these books over here can block line of sight, but you will have to move with a ghost if it does come inside of here. And the next spot is behind this TV, also a pretty good spot, but just like with the table over there, you might have to move with the ghost. So if the ghost is going towards that lamp over there, then you will have to move over here. And then if it goes over here, then you can move behind this TV. But otherwise, this spot is pretty decent. And then finally, you can hide behind this piano over here. And this does block quite a bit of line of sight in this room. And you might be wondering, this bookcase looks like it can be a hiding spot, and it actually used to be a safe spot. However, because the player models got bigger, this spot is not good. Because what happens is, you try to go inside, and then you won't be able to get back out again. And then the last spot in the mail wing is in this room over here. You can still hide behind this little bed over here. And you might be wondering, this looks like a pretty dangerous spot. However, notice my motion sensor placement. This is just one big collider over here, and for the ghost to see you, it would have to go in here. And because this is full-size Sunny Meadows, the ghost will often just path towards the morgue if it does come inside of this room. So overall, I feel pretty okay here. Going around the courtyard again, we will go into the classroom over here, and you do have a couple of options available. The first of which is actually behind this little chair over here. And this can block line of sight, just as long as the ghost does not go over here. But if the ghost does path all the way to the chalkboard over there, then the ghost won't even know you're here. Just make sure you're moving with the ghost's pathing. And another spot that you can hide behind is behind this little corner over here. However, this is a bit of a dead end, and so if the ghost goes far enough over here, then you're going to be in a bit of trouble unless you have incense on you. Next, we will go into the West Foul Linen, and in here, you do have a spot behind this little cart over here. Notice my motion sensor placement, and using this to our advantage, we can hide right about here to have optimal hiding blockage. And hiding it in this spot over here is most optimal. And if the ghost does go onto this side, then you can move a little bit and it will still block line of sight. Or if the ghost is going over here, then you can hide behind right here. However, there is a bit of a flaw with this spot here. And this actually used to be a lot better. Now, before, this used to be just one big block, and I used to be able to throw the motion sensor like this, and it would just fall right here. But now, the motion sensor just goes right through it, and the ghost will be able to see you. But then over here, this does block line of sight. And this can be useful if the ghost is going along this corridor over here, or if the ghost comes inside just a little bit. But overall, this is not the safest spot, and to make it even worse, the ghost can walk through these carts over here as if it wasn't even there. And that's going to be a theme with these hiding spots specifically on this map. Next, we will go into the dairy store, and we do have a spot all the way at the back here behind this little jug over here. And this spot can be pretty decent. And it is thanks to this collider over here, and the ghost will not be able to see you over top of this because of how tall this collider is. And this works pretty similarly to the Edgefield cabinet at the end of the hallway, but there is a problem with this spot. Just like with the other spots, the ghost can just walk through these jugs like it wasn't even there. And so all this room really is to the ghost is just one big empty room. But overall, this is still a pretty useful hiding spot. Just make sure if the ghost is coming over here, then you do cleanse the ghost. And if you're dealing with a crawler, good luck. And the next spot is in the kitchen, and this is the only one. You just hide behind this table, kind of like this, and congratulations, you will not die in the spot. You can have your electronics on, the ghost can get line of sight of you, doesn't matter, the ghost will not be able to get you. And that's because the ghost is trying to get you from this side of the table. So if you need to hide in the kitchen, then this spot is your best bet. Next, we will go into the dining room over here, and you can loop around this table over here, but it is not the best looping spot because the ghost can get line of sight of you pretty easily over top of the tables, and you will speed up the ghost pretty easily. But also, you can kind of hide behind this little chair here and block the door, and you can also move with the ghost a little bit, but if the ghost goes into this side of the room, then you're in some danger. There is another looping spot over here in the kitchen, and you can just loop around here just kind of like this. It is a little bit awkward to loop around here, and that's because of the shape of it, and also this table here does not block line of sight. To make it even worse, this spot is also kind of long, so you do have quite a few opportunities to make the ghost get line of sight of you. So if you are looping here, then be careful and maybe don't do it for long. Next, we will go into the wash house over here, and there is one spot available over here. You just hide behind this little shelf over here, just like this, and it will block line of sight a little bit, but once the ghost goes into this half of the room, then you're going to be in trouble. And then the laundry room. Now, you do have a few spots available inside of this room, first of which is behind this little shelf over here. You can be a bit safe in here at times, but what often ends up happening is the ghost will go past here, and then it will get line of sight of you. So if you do hide here, make sure you have some incense on you. You can also kind of hide behind this little cart over here, and the ghost won't be able to see you unless it gets into this half of the room. One more thing with this cart over here is this part of the cart blocks your head pointers, and also the bottom part of the cart kind of blocks your leg pointers. And that's why the ghost is not able to see you on this half of the room. And you can also hide behind this washer over here, and the ghost will not be able to see you unless it goes over here, or unless it decides to path over here. And now for the biggest flaw imaginable in this room. Now, according to the ghost, all this room really is just one big empty room with just these shelves over here. And what does that mean, you ask? Effectively, the ghost can just walk through the washing machines and these carts like they weren't even there. And so if you are hiding behind this wash over here, the ghost can just set a waypoint right here, and then just set a waypoint over here. And instead of just going around the washers, it will just go from here to here directly through the washing machines. And that is not a good thing, because effectively, you don't know when the ghost is going to go over here, because you're expecting the ghost to go over here on this side of the room to get you in this spot, whereas in reality, the ghost just goes through the washers to get you. So this room, I wouldn't really feel safe hiding here. Next room we'll take a look at is in here. And this little cart over here can block line of sight because the collider at this part of the cart and the bottom part of the cart blocks the necessary pointers in your character. And the same can be said over here. As long as you're hiding right about here, then you'll be safe. Don't hide like this because what happens is the ghost will see all of your head pointers and it will get you. And just like with the other carts, the ghost can walk through these like it wasn't even there. The next spot is inside the servant's room over here, and you might be wondering, there's no hiding spot, where do we hide? And it's actually between this bed and this table over here. Now, just a heads up, this does take a little bit of effort to get inside, and sometimes you can do it relatively easily, but other times you might have to leave and get back in there. But essentially what you would do is you stand right here, and when the ghost tries to go into your room, it just stands in place, and you can get a good visual of the ghost. And so this safe spot here can be pretty good as long as you're not being actively chased by the ghost. Next, we'll go inside of the courtyard over here, and you do have these picnic tables over here. These work just like the picnic tables on Maple Lodge and Camp Woodwind. You can hide behind here, and you can also loop around it. Next, we'll go into this room over here, and there is just one spot available, which is behind this little couch over here. Now, this couch used to be a lot better, and before, the ghost would have to go through here to see you, and then it would get you. But now, what ends up happening is, sometimes the ghost will set a waypoint on top of the couch here, climb on top of it, see you, and then it will just go around and get you. And so this spot here is not as good anymore. And also, you used to be able to go on top of the couch here yourself before the player models got bigger, and that would have been a safe spot as well, but that's no longer the case. So I wouldn't really recommend hiding in this room anymore. Also, another thing I'd like to point out, the ghost can walk through these gurneys over here. So if you think this is a hiding spot over here, it really isn't. In fact, the ghost can just walk through here, and then before you even know it, you're dead. Next, we will go into the utility room over here, and just like I mentioned with the official hiding spot, you can hide behind this shelf and you'll be perfectly safe. The boxes here don't really do anything. It doesn't really block that much line of sight, and the ghost can just walk through the boxes anyways. And so I feel pretty safe here with or without the boxes. Next, we will take a look at the female wing, and there are some spots available that you can use. First of which is behind this little shelf over here. The spot here is okay. However, keep in mind, if the ghost does path into this room here, then it will see you and it will get you. So I'd really only hide here when you know that the ghost is not pathing into this side of the wing. Next, we will check out female room number 3, and you can hide behind this bed over here. And all you do is just line up this part of the frame with the door, and the ghost won't be able to see you unless it goes into this side of the room. But even then, you can kind of move with the ghost as well. So if the ghost goes all the way over here, then you can block line of sight over here, kind of. But you do have to be precise with your movements. Next, we will check out Patient 7's room, or female room number 4. And you do have this spot over here, behind this little suitcase over here. And you can actually line up this corner of the suitcase with that part of the bed frame over here. This is just one big collider, just like the one in the male day room. And effectively, this is just one big line of sight blocker combined. And for the ghost to see you, it would either have to walk over here or go to this side and see you. But even still, you can move with the ghost kind of. And I would feel relatively safe here if I was in a pinch. This gurney over here, you used to loop back and forth over here, but because the player models got bigger, that's no longer the case. Rest in peace, gurney loop. Next, we go over here. You can hide behind these chairs over here, and the ghost will not be able to see you when it's on that half of the wing. But just be careful, because if the ghost does go over here, then you're in a lot of danger. And also the ghost can just walk right through these chairs, no problem. Same with this chair over here. This can block line of sight, but the ghost can just walk through this chair easily. And then going into the dorm room over here, you can actually use this bed over here as a bit of a shimmy spot. You can hide behind here, but it's not great because the ghost likes to ping pong back and forth here. But what you want to do with this spot here to shimmy is ideally you want to have enough time to kind of practice the shimmy. So you want to angle your camera kind of like this. That way you can go left and right easily without getting stuck, because sometimes you do get stuck kind of like this. But if you are like really in danger, you can crouch, and you can go through by crouching easily. You can also do something like this. You go all the way to the right while standing, crouch over here. When the ghost comes over here, then you want to shimmy to the left while crouching, and then you want to come back over here standing, and then the cycle kind of continues. But even still, that requires practice. Now, this spot does not work well if you're at 50% movement speed and you do not have any sprint, because what happens is you're able to go through here without too much difficulty, but if you try to go back, and even if you do crouch, it's next to impossible to do. So you do kind of need that momentum to go back and forth, but you can still kind of use this spot as a shimmy spot, and there is a way to do it. Basically, what you want to do is you want to get as close to the middle of this corner here as possible without going over. Because if you do go over, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But as long as you are kind of like this, and you go back and forth around here, then you will be okay. And I will show you that right now. So the ghost is hunting. I'm going to send it over. It may take a little bit. And in the meantime, we'll position our character like this. Here it is. Now, in an apocalypse situation, this method of looping or shimmying is quite dangerous. And I really wouldn't recommend shimmying on this bed if this is your first attempt. But if you are at higher player speeds, then you can do so no problem. In the day room over here, you can hide behind this chair over here, and it will block quite a bit of line of sight. Same with this chair over here, but if the ghost does go into this side of the room over here, then you're in a bit of danger. You can also kind of loop around this table over here, but the ghost will be speeding up with line of sight. And also, you can hide behind this little chair over here, but it is also not the safest because sometimes the ghost will path over here, and the chances of that happening are pretty high given that there's no room directly underneath this room. We will now go into the basement, and you do have some options available. First of which is behind this little shelf over here, and this spot is relatively okay. The ghost will not be able to see you when it's going up and down the stairs here. And the only way the ghost will be able to get you is if it goes into this area over here. And in this hall over here, you can kind of hide behind this little chair over here. And the only way the ghost will get you is if it's coming in from the west side over here, the hospital wing, or if it decides to path over here. This spot is really only good if the ghost is pathing between the restricted wing and upstairs and back again. This spot can be used to get a visual of the ghost, but it is not the safest hiding spot. Inside of the matron's office over here, you can hide behind this little desk over here. You can also loop around this desk over here, but just be careful with this chair over here, because sometimes you will get stuck and you will have to cleanse the ghost to kind of escape it, or you would have to go around this chair and get more line of sight on the ghost that way. Or what you can do is, using this chair and this desk over here, you can use this as a shimmy spot, and it would be pretty difficult for the ghost to get you. Sometimes it will overshoot, and in that case, you would just do the shimmy in reverse. Next, we'll go to the west wing over here, and let's go into the basement storage over here. You can kind of hide behind this wheelchair over here, and it will block line of sight. Just keep in mind, the ghost will walk through it, no problem. And you can also kind of hide behind this little divider over here, and this will block line of sight. This is a pretty decent sized collider, so the only way the ghost will be able to see you is if it goes kind of deep into this room over here. Into the hospital wing, you do have hospital room number 1 over here. You can hide behind this bed. It is okay. It's not the best hiding spot because sometimes the ghost will go to the back over here and see you, or what will happen sometimes is it will somehow get line of sight of you through here. And that's because there isn't really a good collider on this bed over here. And then this wheelchair over here can also block line of sight, but I wouldn't really recommend using this one. Hospital room number 3. The bed over here is not the best. It actually used to be a lot better. You used to be able to go deep into this corner over here, and it would prevent the ghost from seeing you pretty far in, and it would have to go pretty much over here to see you. But nowadays, the collider for the player is much bigger, and that's not really the case anymore. So this spot took a pretty big beating in the 0.11 update. Next, we will go into hospital room number 4 over here, and this gurney is pretty good. All you would do is you would just kind of go left and right over here, and then it would just keep the ghost forced on that side of the gurney, and you'll be pretty safe. Just make sure you're not hiding afterwards, because what will happen is the ghost will last see you over here, it will reach you through here, and it will get you. So if you are using this as a shimmy spot, then you will have to do it for the entire hunt. Unless you cleanse it, of course. Hospital room number 5 over here does have a couple of spots available. You can hide behind here, and you can be somewhat safe. And this is a pretty decent spot. And that's because of this collider over here. The ghost will not be able to see you over top of this. It would have to go all the way over here to see you. And the odds of that happening are pretty low. And then this spot over here is even better, but risky. All you would do is try to climb over this wheel. It's easier if you have sprint enabled. And then just want to make sure you're hiding like this. Make sure you're not going over top of this wheel over here, because what will happen is you will get stuck and you would have to leave the game in order to escape. But otherwise, you can kind of leave like that, and the ghost will have an even harder time of seeing you. And this spot over here is solid. So be careful if you are using a spot, but otherwise it is pretty good. Another pretty good spot is behind here, and it's because of the collider on this little gurney over here. You can get a good visual of the ghost kind of like this, and just standing right here can be a little risky, especially if the ghost is pathing over here. But in order for this spot to be less risky, you can just go inside of this spot like this, and the ghost would have to go like right into your spot to get you. And so I feel pretty safe in this spot, but this spot is not invincible. The operating room over here has a spot available. You just hide behind the little bench over here, and it does block line of sight, but it's not the safest. Going into the morgue over here, you can loop in a couple of areas, first of which is around this little area over here. And this spot is a little bit long, but it does block line of sight pretty well. You can also loop around this little sink over here, and this is a pretty decent looping spot as well. And then locker over here, as long as the doors open, you can close the doors in on yourself, and it will block line of sight as well. Next, we'll go to the restricted wing over here, and we do have another wheelchair that you can kind of hide behind. This one you do kind of have to move with a ghost in order to be pretty safe, but just like with the other wheelchairs, the ghost can walk right through it, but it can block line of sight. Moving into the restricted wing over here, and the hiding situation is even crazier. Now, the only thing that this wing has going for it is that there are a lot of line of sight blockers. So you can kind of hide behind this wheelchair and it would block line of sight, but if the ghost is pathing this way, then you're in danger. And all of these little dividers over here block line of sight, and same with this table over here. This table is completely solid, so the ghost won't be able to see you through it. So you can kind of do a bit of a slow push towards the end of it if needed. And then going into restricted room number 4 over here, you can kind of hide behind this little cart over here, and the ghost will have to go halfway into the room to see you. But otherwise, this spot is kind of okay. And then going into the examination room, you do have a spot behind this chair over here. And this spot is great. For the ghost to see you, it has to go right about here. And that is very unlikely. And then at the end of this hallway over here, you can hide behind this little divider over here. But it is not the safest because sometimes the ghost will path at the very end, especially if you have a very fast ghost. You can also loop around this little divider here, and this will block line of sight, but just keep in mind that this is a bit of a sketchier looping area. You're not going to get a good visual of the ghost, and also it is kind of thin and a little awkward to loop around at times. But the option is there if you want to use this. And then lastly, you do have this staircase over here, and you can hide underneath the stairs like this. Now, for this to be a safe spot, have your electronics on, because what will happen is the ghost will get stuck directly above you, and it will not be able to get you unless you have your electronics turned off. And so if the electronics are off, then the ghost will be pathing up and down the stairs most often. Sometimes it will path right about here, and then it will see you. Alright, here we are on Sunny Meadows Restricted, and we do have a couple of spots available, and this is specifically the courtyard variant. Now, we're going to the left side over here, and I want to show you this shelf over here, because this one is actually not a bad spot, depending on the ghost type and the pathing. Now, all you do is hide in here, and you should be relatively safe. And the only reason why this is good in the courtyard variant is because you don't have to deal with the ghost going in and out of this door over here for the mail wing. And because this section is blocked off, the ghost will only go this way and this way. And the only way it will go all the way over here is if you get unlucky pathing or you get a really fast ghost. So if you need a spot to hide in the courtyard wing, then this spot can be pretty decent. And then going to the other side of the courtyard, there is another spot towards the very end, and it is also behind a shelf, and it is right here. So all you would do is you would just hide right about here, and you should be somewhat safe. You actually used to be able to go inside of here, but there is a problem, and you might be able to hear it right now. I am stuck. And so before the 0.11 update, this spot would have actually been pretty good at blocking line of sight as well. And sometimes you can get in a position where you can block the line of sight going from the laundry room over here all the way over there, and the ghost would have to go into your hiding spot to get you. But that's no longer the case. So this one is not as good anymore. I'd only hide here if you need a spot to hide at the end of this hallway, and even then I would just hide in either this room here or in the laundry room. But to recap, other than the courtyard variant of Sunny Meadows Restricted, this map is just a small subset of the full-size Sunny Meadows map. This will also impact the hiding spots a little bit since the ghosts are not pathing up and down the stairs in each of the wings. Therefore, the quality of the hiding spots may drop a bit. And that is it for both Sunny Meadows and Sunny Meadows Restricted. Just like in the other hiding guides, if you have any questions, feel free to post them down below and I will answer them as soon as I can. Since this is the final map of the hiding guide playlist, I might consider doing a bonus video showcasing how to survive any hunt in the game, so you might want to stay tuned for that. But that is all that I have for you for today. Hope that this was helpful and informative, and until then, I will see you next time.